Welcome to the prediction and preview video for UFC Fight Night 111. This will take place on the 17th of June out of Singapore. This is the UFC's second visit to Singapore. So we'll just have a run through the the card first. So Holm's facing Correia in the main event. Rafael dos Anjos facing Saffiedine. Arlovski is facing Tybura. Dong Kim is facing Covington. Sasaki is facing, going up against Justin Scoggins. Walt Harris takes on Cyril Asker. Takanori Gomi takes on John Tuck. Kwak takes on Russell Doane. Carl's John Tomas takes on Inoue. Alex Caceres takes on Wang. And the first fight that we are going to be going through is Jingliang against John Meunier. So Jingliang is 12-4, Meunier is 8-1. This is the UFC debut for Meunier, and we can say this is a classic grappler versus striker. Lee has lost to Nordin Taleb, who trains at Meunier's sister gym in TriStar and TriStar Quebec. So I expect that they'll have exchanged a little bit of information about this, maybe giving him some hints and tips. The Canadian is definitely a good striker, and TriStar have a lot of guys on the card, so I expect them to be out there doing really well. They'll have a nice little community out there in Singapore. And Meunier is definitely an interesting prospect, but his loss to Covington is enough to suggest to me that the Leech is going to grind out a decision victory in Singapore. Second up, we have Alex Caceres or Bruce Leeroy, who's 12-10 against Wang, who's 16-1-1. Two very exciting stand-up fighters. Many people underestimate Bruce Leeroy and how good he is in all aspects of the game. They see he's very flashy and they think that that's what he's all about. This could be the correct matchup for him to show, that that's not the truth. He's got 5 submission victories already. He certainly could, or he certainly has the opportunity to improve on that. Wang does deserve his shot in the big time, because while the guys he have been beating are not the best, he really did only face one recognized opponent, Magomedov, and lost that one by decision. But I think that this is going to be a step too far for him. I think Caceres should take this to the ground, and if he does that, if Caceres is managed to take it to the ground and wrestle him or grapple with him, then I think that he can win this by a decision. This has everything to be fight of the night, in my opinion. But, both guys, if this is a stand-up battle, both guys can win this on the feet. And I'm really going to be interested to see how Wang hangs with a real contender, a real top fighter. Some guy who deserves to be in the UFC. Then we have very interesting matchup. Carl's John Tomas, who's 6-0, 3 submission victories and 3 decision victories, against Inoue, who's 10-0, 7 submission victories and 3 decision victories. They are 20 years old and 19-year-old respectively. Wow. Both making the UFC debuts. Like I said earlier, there's a few people making debuts on the card, and these are 2 of them. Looking at their previous fights and the people that they were fighting against, it's really difficult to know where their level truly is, if they deserve to be in the UFC. I'm gonna pick via points, but either guy could really win this, and we're not going to find out a lot on the night. We're going to find out a lot when they actually go up against guys who have proven quality inside the UFC. But yeah, expect to see a kind of grinding game on the floor. Who knows? You know, that from what I've seen of these guys, they look fairly competent, but the people that they were facing were not good enough to make a real judgment based off that. Next up, we have Kwak against Russell Doane. Doane actually fought and won on the first UFC card in Singapore, and he'll certainly hope to repeat that feat tonight. However, he won that, which was his UFC debut, and also he beat Marcus Brimage in a split decision, I believe. But since then, he's been on a 4-fight skid. Now, he's never been KO'd, and Kwak's main route to victory is through his hands. He beats, a lot of guys via TKO. I think Doane is fighting for his UFC career, and it would be a real shame if he debuted in Singapore with a victory and then his last fight was in Singapore with a defeat. So I think because of the experience inside the cage, because of what's on the line for him, he's going to force a decision victory, and we'll see whether he can turn his career around or whether, ultimately he'll end up going out of the UFC. Then we get into a very experienced fight. Takanori Gomi, 35-12 against John Tuck, who's 9-4. However, the joint record for the last 11 bouts is only 3 wins and 8 losses. Yeah, that's not good. It's really not very good at all. Gomi, is somewhat known as a striker. He likes to strike, and he does have a chance still standing. But I feel that Tuck is more likely to win by submission at this stage. I think he's just got a little bit more to offer. I don't know whether Gomi's still got that power in his hands that delivered him so many victories early in his career. I think it would be great if, not necessarily great that Gomi gets released, but if he does lose and he goes out, I would love to see him on a rising card at the end of the year, hopefully where he can get a victory and retire in style. So yeah, John Tuck to win, let's say via decision. Then we have the heavyweight clash, Walt Harris versus Cyril Asker. Walt is 9-5, Asker's 8-2. The UFC is desperately in need of top quality heavyweights, or just in need of heavyweight bodies, as we can see from this fight. Neither of these guys is really elite. I think Harris is going to win this by TKO, but don't expect either of these two guys to be pushing for the fight against Stipe anytime soon. Next up, Yuta Sasaki, who's 19-4-2, takes on Justin Scoggins, who's 11-3. It's a really good flyweight contest in my opinion, and again, it's a striker who's facing off against a grappler. Now, last time out, Sasaki impressed me in his fight against Wilson Reyes, and I think if he can continue fighting like that, then he has a chance to improve himself and move up. Now, he does need to improve his stand-up game, in my opinion, but Scoggins, who's, let's say, most of his victories come via TKO, hasn't won via that method since his UFC debut back in 2013. I think Sasaki has enough to get this to the ground, maybe make it ugly, maybe make it boring, and win via decision. So, I'm predicting a lot of guys taking things to the floor and trying to grind out decision victories. It won't be the most entertaining course of events, but I think it's the most likely course of events. Next up, we have Colby Covington versus Dong Hyun Kim. Covington is 11-1, and Dong Hyun Kim is 22-3. You could say that this is another striker versus grappler that will likely end up in the hands of the judges. Kim has never been submitted, while Covington has never lost by TKO. And that means, that suggests to me that this is probably going to end in decision. That's why I said it's going to end in the hands of the judges. And at 35 years old, Kim really needs to show that he's still got the desire to succeed at the top level. Because I do feel that Colby Covington is gunning for the top 5, and I think he's going to be the one that gets the nod. He does look like a good talent. It looks like he's going to be around for a little while, messing around in that top 10. Kim, I don't know what's going to happen to him, where he's going to go, whether he's going to be used, to measure younger opponents in the Division, see where they really stand. But I think it's going to be Covington's night. Then we have Andrei Arlovski against Marcin Tybura. Arlovski just never goes away. This guy has a record of 25-14. Tybura has 15-2. And people keep writing Andrei Arlovski off. Maybe this time they're right, however. He's 38 years old. He's lost his last 4. It's unlikely, even if he gets a victory, that he's got enough fights left in him to put together a title run. Tybura has won 3 of his last 4, and other than his loss to Timothy Johnson, where he was pushed up against the fence, he looks quite good. He's dangerous on the feet, and Arlovski won't push him up against the fence. Arlovski won't try and hold him and push him up against the fence. So, the most likely scenario is that these two guys throw down. Tybura throws in his kicks and stuff. And logic, evidence at this point might tell you that Tybura is the guy who's going to win this. And I have to admit, if I was making a decision based on logic, I would say Tybura, but there's something about Arlovski that makes me think he's got another surprise in him. And I think he's going to pull off another TKO KO victory. So Arlovski to win that one. Then the co-main event, Rafael dos Anjos against Tarek Saffiedine. Both of these guys are ex-champions. Of course, Rafael dos Anjos, 25-9, used to be the UFC lightweight champion. Tarek Saffiedine, 16-6, the last Strikeforce welterweight champion. Now, both guys have lost their last 2 fights. There are very big questions hanging over RDA. He switched camps, he started his own gym and things like that. So he's got a lot to prove, to justify that decision. Saffiedine is another guy fighting out of TriStar, on a card where they've got a lot of guys present. So I think he's going to feel very comfortable. There's going to be a lot of familiar faces around him, especially with this being a foreign country for most of these guys. I think the key really here is the game plan. If Saffiedine, and this is going to sound weird, but if Saffiedine can keep disciplined but up his aggression, then I think he wins this fight decision. Now, obviously, Dos Anjos can't fight at lightweight because of weight cutting issues, and maybe that's the good thing in terms of his health, but I don't think he can be a welterweight contender. Where he goes from here or what he does afterwards, I can't tell you. I don't know what's going to be the decision, but I think that's the way it's going to finish. And then that takes us on to the final fight of the night, Holm against Correia. Now, Holm's 10-3 and Correia is 10-2. That doesn't necessarily tell us the real story. Holm is a former champion. She has lost the last 2 decisions that went all the way, and I don't know that she's necessarily got enough about her to. I don't know if she's got the power to knock out Correia. Maybe if she gets the kick up there like she did against Rousey. But she lost to Miesha Tate in the 5th round, in a fight that she was winning. She lost to Valentina Shevchenko on decision after 5 rounds. She lost to Jane Durandamy after 5 rounds. So the real big question here is, can Correia push this all 5 rounds. She's never been 5 rounds in her career, and the most likely scenario for her to win, is with her punches. She can win by decision, but this is, for me, that's what's going to be interesting, is does Holm's 5-round experience, is that the thing that's going to win it for her? Or does, the Betch, Coco, Correia, have that immigrant mentality and get at her and try and win this fight, standing? Does she take it all the way? I'm not sure that she can take it all the way. I'm not sure that that's how it's going to work for her. So my decision here is I think Holly Holm is going to win it. I think she's going to have to throw head kicks to win this via TKO. Maybe she just presses her into the fence, but Holm really can't expect to take this 5 rounds because it doesn't end well for her in that scenario. And for Correia, I don't know if she's got the gas tank to go 5 rounds, so it's going to be an interesting one. I think it's going to be mainly stand-up. I think Holm's a lot more technical than Correia in striking, but Correia maybe has the power advantage. It's certainly going to be an interesting night. I predict far too many of these fights going to decision. I hope that's not true. Can Arlovski really pull off the shock victory again? We're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be going out on Fight Pass, I believe, and we'll see how successful the Singapore show is. Please let me know what you think about the video, the new graphics and things like that. Encourage people to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If there's anything you'd like to see me go over or go into more detail about, please write in the comments and I'll see what I can do. There's going to be a lot more videos coming out because the UFC are going to be busy over the next 2-3 months. So hopefully once they've got the cards finalized, we'll get some more of these videos up.